This is another episode of the Blossom Podcast, your number one source for everything bariatric surgery, from pre-op to post-op. Registered dietitian Alex Conception gives you real, raw tips and motivation through your journey. This is the Blossom Podcast.
All right, welcome back to the Blossom Podcast. We are here co-hosting with me, the better voice of this show, Catherine Kyle. You remember her? Say what's up.
What is going on?
Last time we spoke, I was talking about mental health and my reason why I unplugged and where I've been. But it was a nice segue to our guest today, Tabitha Johnson. I'm sure you guys have heard about her on the website. You've seen that we work with Tabitha. She is... Let's just introduce you. Tabitha, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you guys so much for having me. So my name is Tabitha Johnson, aka the BariBoss, and I've been grateful to partner with Blossom for the last almost 3 years. I'm also a previous patient of Blossom's. I just had my surgiversary last month, 4 years.
Wow,
Amazing.
4 years.
Time flies.
Yes, that is awesome. So what was your experience with Blossom in terms of when you came in? What was your highest weight?
So my highest weight was 230 pounds, and I've been able to successfully keep off 100 pounds. My experience with Blossom has been amazing from start to finish. I love Dr. Matt. He's been very upfront with me with everything as far as what to expect post-weight loss surgery. And I just found the staff to be very engaging. Whenever I had questions, there was never someone that couldn't help. So I recommend Blossom to everybody. I think I've had at least 3 or 4 friends since I've had surgery come and become patients as well. So
That's awesome. I can't believe it's been 4 years.
I know.
That is
Time
just,
flies.
and you have successfully kept it off. And let me ask you a question. So obviously you explained Blossom and how it's been, your success, and it's been 4 years now. But let me ask you this: why did you even decide to have weight loss surgery? What brought you to that decision? And how long did you consider it?
Great question. So I was actually in a car accident. I think it was September of 2014. I ended up injuring my back, and I was supposed to have back surgery. The surgeon at the time was like, you know what, you're honestly too young to have back surgery, and quite frankly, it may not work. So a friend of mine had just had surgery here with Blossom, and she recommended just go in for a consult and see. Fortunately, I just barely qualified, and so I was able to do that, because prior to the surgery, I was not able to really do a lot of lifting. I'd put on about 40 to 50 pounds post the accident. So I was in a lot of pain, taking opioids. It was not a pleasant situation. My daughter was 2 at the time, and so I just remember feeling like I couldn't really be active as a mom, and I knew that my quality of life had decreased drastically. And so that's where you guys came in, and you saved my life, so thank you.
Awesome. Tabitha, how tall are you? This is a podcast. People can't see. Just
gotcha.
paint a picture.
Sure, so I am 5'5".
Okay, 5'5", you were 230 pounds, and how? What was your lowest weight or current weight?
My lowest weight, I actually got down to 118. So at one point I was a little underweight. So Dr. Matt had jokingly said, you could probably start eating some things that you shouldn't eat. So I kind of joked back with him, and I said, you're just giving me a license to be, because I'm basically a dry drunk with food. So I said, don't do that. But yeah, so right now I'm about 128.
Yeah, which is healthy.
Yes.
You look amazing. So when I do our marketing with Tabitha, because she does mental health and the psychological aspects of weight management with surgery. But if you see her picture and you don't know her story, you're wondering, how can this skinny help me?
Right.
And what does she know? So that's why I want to paint that picture and tell your story as well, because yes, you not only talk the talk, but you have walked the walk, and that's what we love about, our relationship as well.
Tell me a little bit about your background, and because I know that obviously you're the BariBoss, you got your bariatric coaching certificate, but there's probably a lot that went into that. It's not like one day you just woke up, you got weight loss surgery, then the next day you're like, oh, I want to help other people. Tell me a little bit about your background.
Great question. So I am by trade a licensed marriage and family therapist here in Nevada, as well as a licensed clinical alcohol and drug counselor. I've been in the field since about 2009. My passion is helping people, and so post-op I recognized there was there was a little bit of a gap in terms of long-term support. I think there's many of us that sort of felt like, what next? You know, who do I go to for, you know, dealing with some of my emotional needs post-op? Because for me, food was my drug. So I had to learn to live without that coping skill. And so because I already teach people how to make change in their lives on a day-to-day basis, for me, this just seemed like a natural segue. And so actually it's been 3 years since I started BariBoss. It was March of 2018.
Oh, wow.
So I kind of checked in with Catherine, was, you know, starting to work on a blog, and here we are, and we grew into this partnership. So I'm
amazing.
super grateful for you guys.
One thing that I think people don't realize with weight loss surgery is obviously your body changes. Sometimes your mindset, or when you're looking in the mirror, you still see that old person. And we've talked about this before, really the importance of working on the mental side of things. Do you think that that is important for everyone? Do you think that some people have different struggles than others? And what would you tell someone, you know, why it's important to work on that mental side?
Yeah, so I honestly think the mental side is for everyone. Whether, you know, I'll just use myself as an example. I still have times where I look in the mirror and I still see the 230 pounds. You know, that doesn't always go away. But I also have learned to love myself and accept myself. And so even, you know, telling you my weight, I wasn't cringing to say, okay, this is where I'm at now, because I've accepted that I'm also more than just my weight.
Exactly. I love that.
So, and I think, you know, for those of us who have done so many different diets and we've gained and lost, there's this expectation that now that I've had the sleeve, all is fixed, and that is so not the case. We still have to deal with that mental battle. So, you know, currently I don't have those cravings for food. Like, I used to obsess about food all day long, from the moment that I would wake up till when I would go to bed. I already knew what I was going to eat that day. There was a lot of binging and shameful kind of activities that I would go through. I don't have those cravings, but I still do struggle when it's in front of me. I still have to make the right choice, right? So it's an ongoing process. So I think for people to be prepared for, this is a life change. You know, this isn't a quick fix. We're not going to be perfect afterwards. We've still got to deal with our relationships and our view of ourselves. So.
For those who have not gone through surgery yet, or who are thinking about it, working on it, what would your advice be beforehand to prepare for something like this mentally?
Great question. I would say, you know, so the therapist side of me would say, okay, if you're in the middle of some pretty big life changes, whether that's a divorce, a big move, a career change, you may want to give yourself a little bit of time to adjust from that, because the surgery alone is quite an adjustment. So being really mindful of, you know, what your next steps are to be. And then also just what kind of support system do you have? You know, making sure that you have people in your life that will help hold you accountable. You know, some folks don't like to tell people they've had surgery. That's fine. I'm not saying you need to tell everyone, but at least have your go-to people, whether that's a previous patient, whether that's a support group, whether that's a coach, a therapist, somebody that can walk with you.
Absolutely.
Now that you've had the surgery, right? If somebody does have the surgery, there's so many things that have changed that we've dealt with, that we've had to adapt in the last year. Obviously, COVID, 2020, just in general, right? So what is relevant now that you would say people can work on after the surgery in today's time? What is the most common or, you know, pressing mental aspect of surgery that you can talk about?
What I've been getting a lot lately is people, you know, getting back into old habits, right? Because for those of us who've had to quarantine or isolate or shelter in place, whatever the case may be, stressors are high right now. Folks are working from home. They might have kids on, you know, online for school, and so juggling all these different roles. And of course, a lot of us used to stress eat. So it's, now I'm home and I've got access to my fridge and my pantry. So what am I doing to keep myself safe? Am I ordering, you know, Costco, and I'm getting the cookies again and the ice cream and all that stuff, because it's very easy to backslide, especially in isolation, right? So if I have nobody around to kind of check in my pantry, what's going on, Tab, what are you doing? And I can even say for myself, I did have a period where I struggled in this last year, because everything had changed. Like all of my go-to coping skills, things were shut down. I couldn't get to the gym. I didn't have access to my mom crew that we would hang out and talk and stuff like that. So really reinventing and figuring out what can I do now to continue the progress that I've made instead of backsliding just due to just all the restrictions that we've been under.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you feel with yourself, so obviously you're a counselor, a therapist by trade, and then you are a bariatric coach, and you identify what should be done with other people, and I'm sure all day you're kind of coaching them along or counseling them and saying, here's what I suggest. What do you do for yourself in that aspect?
Really great question. So I make sure that I have people in my corner as far as accountability for all areas of my life, whether that's exercise, food, spirituality. I just have go-to people because for me, if I'm on my own, that's where I get into trouble. So
For a lot of people.
Definitely.
For a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's what the whole quarantine has really set people back, because
Exactly.
this is the situation that got them there in the first
Yes.
place.
Right.
Yes.
And now everything was now forced back into that direction, and they're stuck in their head,
Right.
in their mind.
And I mean, there's no shame in seeking help from a professional counselor. I got back into counseling. I mean, we're dealing with just so much at one time. I just don't think we were designed to navigate all these challenges in one specific time. So.
And it's tough too. I don't think we were necessarily designed to isolate or to be alone. And I think what's interesting is it's so important. The word isolation is tough anyways.
Yes.
Or quarantining, or I feel like we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel a little bit, but just because you have to be at home and you can't interact in certain face to face, or if you were, like you said, with your mom groups or school or friends or church or whatever, tell me what you think is a good thing for people to do now if they still can't interact, or they're just not comfortable with interacting in person.
Yeah, so I think if, a lot of folks have been getting together on Zoom, or we've got the Blossom Facebook group, I think whatever you can do to connect to another human within your comfort zone, I think is awesome. I did recently create the BariBoss Academy, actually, which is a self-paced online coaching course. So it's videos that we put together that basically outline, how to create healthy habits and sustainable habit change. And so even if you're stuck in the house, whether you're in Texas right now with the blizzard, we're launching this program March 1st, and it's going to give you immediate access to some support.
That's
Fantastic. Awesome. I love that. What else can you gain from the academy? Is it's set up online and you can just...
Yeah, so it's self-paced and you get lifetime access. So it's helpful, I think, especially when maybe we're navigating some additional stressors that kind of brought us back some of those old habits. And so even just a refresher, so for those folks that I've worked with individually already, it's not a bad way to kind of just, oh yeah, I remember we worked on this, and to have access to some of those tools. And again, it's just, very simple applications for your daily life is really what it is. And my goal is to create more online learning spaces. So I'm going to be looking for feedback from Blossom patients on what are some things that you guys would like to hear about or learn about, whether that's relationships, sex, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We could cover that.
So I know previously, and still, as we promote you, it's more of a one-on-one session. There's a discovery call to understand if our patient would like to have a relationship with you, that you can help them kind of navigate the mental side of things. And I was so excited when you told us about the academy, because just like we're talking about now, people need things to come to them. And obviously, if they're busy, or they have kids at home, and same thing with you, if you have your family, it's very difficult to set aside a time to talk. And so for us, I think this is going to be so incredible for our patients to be able to access this on their own time, and be able to log in and learn and see different topics. And I know that you're always talking about adding different modules or different courses or different topics, and I'm sure our whole entire group would love to suggest some things that they'd love to hear about. But tell us a little bit about right now, what can be found on there, and how many modules do you currently have?
So there's 37 modules, and really
Wow.
it's we put a lot of time into this actually. So for the better part of 2020, we were filming these videos and putting things together, and I really wanted it to be just easy, right? And so just simple things that people can add into their daily lives, whether it's, you know, the way that we talk to ourselves. How do I learn to love myself? And for many of us, you know, for myself at least, I really didn't gain a true understanding of who I was until later in my adult life. And because I viewed myself as my weight. So being able to separate that out. So there's different exercises that people are able to do just again on their own time. There's areas where people can chat and give feedback, because I really want it to be a place where people can learn from each other and also, you know, give me feedback. You know, this is my first go around with it, so it's not going to be perfect, but I'm very proud of it, and just excited to see, you know, what people will gain from it.
I'm excited too, and I got a little sneak peek. And
Not
the topics,
me. I'm excited to
I'll
see
be
now.
chilling.
the topics are amazing. It's really well put together. It's easy to navigate. You do really dive into it. I love how it flows because it touches on almost every topic I see on the support group on a daily basis. People are really struggling, and like you said in the beginning of our conversation, these folks, it's not a quick fix. This is a tool, and you can't have your whole car running, right? You got the engine going, but if the AC's out or if the brakes don't work, we have an issue. So it's a similar situation. You have to have mind, body, spirit, soul, all of that working together. And I'm excited. I think it's our patients are going to love it, and the fact that you can continue to build on it. And if people have additional questions or topics, we're excited to see those suggestions, definitely.
Yeah, and I think what I love about the work that I've been able to do with Blossom patients, we've really noticed that there's a spiritual component. So when we're talking from an addiction standpoint, you know, for anybody who's familiar with 12 steps, we usually talk about surrendering to a higher power. And so, you know, it's not necessarily something that I implemented into the program. It just sort of naturally flowed. But a lot of folks have spirituality. And so we combine that as a way of, you know, this could be a healthy coping skill for you, whether that's worship, doing devotionals, having accountability partners within your church, whatever that might look like. It's really helped a lot of the clients that I've worked with. So that may be something coming soon as far as...
That's awesome. In my experience, that is actually a big aspect of my mental health. And that's just growing up in general. I've always leaned on, you know, my spirituality, my, you know, Christianity. You know, it's always like there's so many sects, and I don't want to you know, individualize one or the other or make you believe that you need to be any religion. But from my personal experience, you know, leaning on my religion has been extremely helpful.
Absolutely. Whatever that higher power is,
Whatever
right?
that higher power is.
Because you just can't do it alone.
It's
you know,
true.
If we're all sitting there just trying to figure it out within ourselves, you could just drive yourself completely crazy.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, and I don't know where this is going to go, but you mentioned something about, you know, food addiction and people struggling with that and trying to cope with that. Do you think that everyone who is overweight or obese has a food addiction?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm going to probably say no. I think that it's honestly a coping mechanism, and I think there's, if you want to look at it like on a spectrum, right? So there's going to be varying degrees of the spectrum. So you might have somebody that maybe only occasionally binges versus somebody that's like a chronic issue. So to further clarify that, I would probably say they would need to see a licensed professional to do an assessment to determine if it's a food addiction. Because I've talked to a lot of folks, sometimes it's simply, I wasn't able to lose the baby weight, and then over time, you know, I just was sedentary, couldn't get, you know, active, I was dealing with the kids, that type of thing. And it's not that they're not trying to eat well, it's just maybe they haven't done a lot of movement, so there's, you know, the weight just stayed. Whereas someone like myself, who was a binge eater, that was something, you know, starting at age 7 all the way up into my 30s that I struggled with. So, so I would say yes and no, because I can't give a blanket diagnosis for everybody. But I think, and one of the things that we uncover in the academy as well as during my coaching is we really talk about the generational side of things, like where did some of these thoughts about food come from to help us better understand? You know, is it something that, you know, the parents were overweight and we always, you know, looked at food as our drug or our coping skill, or is it the opposite? Was, you know, a parent overweight and they didn't want their children to become overweight, so they obsessed about calories and that type of thing? You know, it just depends on what we were raised in.
Yeah. Wow.
I actually noticed that a lot with patients and finding certain reasons from the upbringing, and it's learned.
Yes.
A lot of people, when they were a kid, they could not leave the table unless they finished their food.
Wow.
And that was one of the biggest things that I noticed in a lot of people, is that that's just something that they did because as a kid they were penalized and they were punished if they didn't finish their plate. You have to clean your plate, so that is just an awareness, that people are like, oh wow, now get a smaller plate. You know, you can still finish it, but it's going to be smaller, and that's like certain changes that I guess you can do. I mean, I'm not a therapist or anything like that, but it's just something I've suggested to help.
Yeah. And on the same token too, and I believe that there's a module in the BariBoss Academy on this, correct me if I'm wrong, about transfer addiction.
Yes.
And that in your experience with these types of patients, is that common, and is that going to happen no matter what?
What is transfer addiction first?
So transfer addiction, let's say I'm addicted to a certain substance, and now I've abstained from that substance, but I found something new, a new toy. So again,
big with cigarettes.
Yes. So, you know, I think I've shared this before on previous videos. I started kind of having this weird addiction to pajamas. I was buying pajamas, and somebody actually they said, you know, Tab, you're looking for comfort. And I was like, oh, okay. Because I didn't even see it. I would go to Target,
therapy.
and I was just getting these pajamas, and I've got all these pairs of pajamas. I don't know why. Like, it was just whatever that looks like, right? So, but again, I think with transfer addiction, so we just want to be mindful of, okay, we're getting rid of one thing. What are we going to add that's healthy, right? And so some people may struggle with alcohol post-weight loss surgery because, you know, well, I'm not eating, you know, it's okay, right?
Right,
I'm just
common.
drinking.
Yeah.
But then you got to ask yourself, what is the intent? What is the intent behind the usage? So is the intent to escape? Is the intent because I've had a bad day? I deserve this, you know, that type of thing. So I think when we look at our behaviors, we're really asking ourselves, why am I doing what I'm doing? Mm-hmm. You know, and that's kind of what I hope to get to the heart of when I'm working with folks, so we can better understand our own behavior.
Yeah, wow.
One of the biggest questions that I get always boils down to managing unrealistic expectations. That is one of the biggest struggles I have in counseling, and that is why we set up, you know, the protocol that we do to help manage unrealistic expectations. What are your thoughts on that? Very general.
Sure. So I think for many of us, we have to recognize that this took time for us to gain all this weight.
Yes.
It's going to take time to unlearn a lot of these behaviors. It's going to take time to see some of that progress. You know, I know I spoke to this maybe a year ago or 2 years ago when we did some of the videos. We can't compare ourselves to someone on Facebook.
Absolutely.
You know, just because they lost 50 pounds in their first month doesn't mean that you're going to lose 50 pounds in your first month. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. We're just all individuals. Our bodies are different. So
that's why we do the metabolic test,
exactly.
You know, and we want to, I always say that your metabolism is a reflection of your lifestyle leading up to this point.
Yes,
and this
absolutely.
is not, everybody isn't the same, you know, but that social media, that comparison, it starts, why am I failing? When in actuality, you're doing absolutely amazing and you are crushing it right now. It's like, but they're losing 50 and I just lost 20. You know, what's going on? So yeah, managing that unrealistic expectation, I think is huge. And you said it right there. It took time to get to where you were. It's going to take time to undo all of that.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, realizing what got you there in the first place is gonna be very, very strong mentally.
Well, and you made a good point, Alex. Like in one of your very first podcasts, you're talking about infobesity and how not only are we getting ads and social media, and you're scrolling your feed, and I get my screen time notification every night, and it's like you spent X amount of hours looking at your phone. So it's not just people comparing themselves within weight loss surgery, but anyone. Sure. And it's almost impossible to avoid. So we're constantly comparing ourselves to each other or to someone that you think is better looking or has something, a better job or more money. And it's that social media. So it's a very slippery slope where, yes, use it as a tool to connect with people, but you could just really go down a deep, dark hole in that comparison aspect.
Right. And I think at some point we have to get back to what is okay for me. Instead of looking to the external to satisfy me. Right?
Absolutely.
So, but everything is so quick now, right? We just don't have that patience.
Yeah, and that attention span has gone down so much.
Exactly.
I was actually just having this conversation with somebody about older movies. I recommended a movie to somebody that was just, had all the awards, and when he watched it, he was like, dude, that was boring. I was like, are you kidding? I was like, but the dialogue, and I realized too, it's because now we've changed in our attention that the footage is long, dialogue, whereas now the screen needs to change every 3 seconds.
The action,
angles need to change, and it's like we start getting bored so quickly. It's like, next, swipe, and we've been conditioned and programmed now to see what's next, who's got the next thing.
Well, and I think even adding into the mixed COVID, right? So now we've got this sort of underlying sense of negativity. Everybody's tired, everybody's a little bit irritable, we're just kind of over this at this point, and so you add that factor to it. It's like, I want it now.
Yeah, instant results. And I always say too, anything worth having is going to take time, it's going to take effort. There's no quick fix, there's no right now.
Exactly.
So as far as, again, going back to BariBoss Academy and your background and being a therapist, they kind of cross over, but it is important for folks who use the BariBoss Academy to really not use it as a personal counselor or personal therapist. Do you suggest both, or what does that look like to you? Because it is a tool, so explain to me what you think about that.
So just to kind of clarify, so I'm only licensed in Nevada as a therapist. I do have a certification in health and life coaching, which is worldwide. But I do recommend, if you're dealing with some deep-seated things like depression, anxiety, maybe you're going through some marital troubles, that type of thing, I would recommend seeking out professional help from a licensed counselor in your state. The BariBoss Academy is really more designed to provide assistance post-op as far as just creating that healthy habit change. But that nitty-gritty deeper stuff, if there's some trauma that you're dealing with, especially now with COVID, I would definitely recommend seeking additional help.
Awesome.
So great clarification, thank you.
What else do you want to talk about? Do you have any pressing questions, things that actually I do have? If somebody is just listening right now, first time, brand new to surgery, or years out, what are 2 or 3 things that you can recommend that they do for their health today? Mental health.
For their mental health. I think start from a place of gratitude. Right now, especially with everything that's going on, I know for me that has been huge. I think figure out a way to move your body. Maybe you're stuck in a snowstorm in Texas right now, you can't get out, your gym's closed. What can you do at home? Just some simple exercises with your kids, find something on YouTube, a couple, 10-minute workout just to get your body moving. And then 3, I think support. Where can you find that additional support, whether that's in home with your family or friends, whether you're on a Zoom call, plug into the academy after March 1st, but get support.
Yes, I love that. So attitude is the best gratitude?
That's
or
right.
Gratitude is the best attitude?
Either way, it kind of works.
Yeah,
I like it.
When you move, you groove and get support.
Exactly.
Okay, that's what we want. How can people find you?
So on Instagram, I'm the BariBoss 702.
BariBoss, BARI boss.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
702, and that's there's more area codes now,
right?
But 702 was the
Vegas.
local old school.
Yes.
And of course you can. How can people reach out via Blossom?
Easy. Just go to blossombariatrics.com/BariBoss, and in the next several weeks, we're going to have a brand new page that people can submit their information to request a special price, right,
Yes.
for Blossom patients to access the BariBoss Academy. And Tabitha Johnson, the BariBoss, we are so excited to be in partnership with you. We're stoked to see your academy and let the whole world know. And
So
we
grateful
really
for you guys.
appreciate your time
we would
today.
love to have you back. There's so many questions that people do have that,
Absolutely.
we want to get an introduction today and, just see who you are and introduce you. But there are very specific questions I know we can talk hours on, and you probably have a lot to say about too. So there will probably be a part 2, hopefully.
I love it.
And do you have anything else, Catherine?
I think that's it.
Do you have anything else, Tabitha?
No, I just appreciate you all. Thank you so much for
Thank
your
you
time.
for your time as well. And that's pretty much it, guys. Stay tuned for the next. We will talk to you later. Peace.
This was another episode of the Blossom Podcast. For more motivation and future episodes with Alex, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any life-changing moments.